Good afternoon. I call to order the special meeting of the Mayor and City Council at 5:30 p.m. Welcome and thank you for being here, and thank you to those viewing remotely. Councilmember Flores, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Please rise. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez. Here. Councilmember Ibarra is not present at the moment. Mayor Pro Tem.
Here.
Councilmember Charette. Here. Councilmember Canas is not present at the moment. Councilmember Flores.
Present.
And Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
And Mayor Tran.
Here. Thank you. Moving on to public comments. At this time, public comments will be heard for the items listed on the agenda. To address the City Council, everyone must complete a speaker card and provide it to the City Clerk. Only those speaker cards turned into the City Clerk will be allowed to address the City Council. No late cards will be accepted. Each person should state their name for the record before beginning their comments. As your name is called, please line up in the order announced. We have two podiums available for your convenience. Please proceed to either one as soon as your name is called. If you require Spanish interpretation, we do have an interpreter on. Do we have an interpreter on site? We do. Thank you. Please raise your hand at this time to indicate you need interpreting assistance. In addition, we have interpreting listening devices available in the back.
Thank you, Mayor. En este momento se escucharán solo los comentarios públicos para artículos de la agenda. Para dirigirse al Consejo Municipal, cada individuo debe completar una tarjeta de orador. Se debe completar la tarjeta de orador y entregarla a la secretaria municipal en este momento. Solo aquellas tarjetas de orador entregadas a la secretaria municipal podrán dirigirse al Consejo Municipal. No se aceptarán tarjetas tardías. Cada persona debe indicar su nombre para el registro antes de comenzar sus comentarios. Al ser llamado, por favor, forme una fila en el orden anunciado. Disponemos de 2 podios para su comodidad. Diríjase a cualquiera de ellos tan pronto se le llame su nombre. Si necesita interpretación en español, tenemos un intérprete presente. Por favor, levante la mano en este momento para indicar que requiere servicios también. Tenemos aparatos disponibles para escuchar la Junta en español. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Gracias. Madam City Clerk?
We have 4 speakers tonight. Branica N., Scott Olson, Eric Marquez, Natalia Saka.
Thank you. If you hear your name, please come approach the podium. You have 3 minutes each. Please state your name.
Yeah, my name is Scott Olson. I am a lifetime resident of San Bernardino, and I get involved and I care. I had the privilege, geez, it's been 6 months to a year ago, where I started working with Eric Marquez on his garden plot in San Bernardino. I'd heard about this thing. It was like the legend you heard about in rumors about this plot where in San Bernardino where you could get 60-foot by 60-foot garden plots at a reasonable price. Up until then, I was over on 3rd Street at the Loma Linda Garden. I had 10-foot by 20-foot. I couldn't even fit into there and get anything done. Gardening is one of those things that you have to like and want to put the work into. And San Bernardino has a quiet jewel in the rough sitting over there on Pedley and 6th Street. I'm not sure whose ward it is, but somebody's not paying attention to that garden. Because whoever ward it is, it needs a whole lot of love. You have a lot of people that go there and they literally spend hundreds of hours making things good in San Bernardino. There's no negatives. It's a part of the city parks and recs. And I know the Parks and Recs has had a hard time between COVID, bankruptcy, budget cuts, and even the homeless. They've really had a bad run of it. If you want to talk about a city agency that's been a victim of what's been going on over the last 10 or 15 years, Parks and Recs has seen more than their fair share of everything. This garden is kind of, it's there and they run it, and I'm not going to complain about them one bit. There's no complaint here. The simple fact is, if you want something to look good, you have to put money into it. You're putting millions of dollars into Seacom Lake Park. You're not going to take millions of dollars. And quite honestly, having only one city-run garden The city of Rialto is not even half your size, and they run 3 gardens, and I was a part of their garden plots. I know how a city does it right and how they can show the love because I was experiencing it with Rialto for years. Guys, this is one of those things that's a no-brainer. It's not a whole lot of money. It needs simple things like a gravel road, and the water pressure needs to be updated, you know, so because if you don't have water, gardenings don't work. It really is simple. Most of the people there, they'd be willing to sit in and help you fix most of this stuff. Unfortunately, Parks and Rec told them they couldn't do it outside of their own garden. But all of you, I invite you, please come to the garden, see it for yourself, and I'll also get the phone calls if you want to see Rialto, their main garden. I know it very well. I was there for years and had plots. You can see the infrastructure, and it's painfully obvious within about 10 seconds when you see both what San Bernardino needs to do. And quite honestly, with a population twice as much, why do we only have 1 garden? Why not a garden in the north end? Why not a garden on the west side? There was a garden on the west side once upon a time. I think there's one over the park. I'm not really sure. I never hear anything about it, which is kind of strange. But we used to have a garden over. Anyway,
Thank you.
do the garden right, please.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please state your name.
Hello. It's a pleasure to speak before all of you again. My name's Eric Marquez. I said that in the wrong order. As previously stated in my last public comments, I would love to see code enforcement to be improved. We have had our fair share of fires above the 210. And there's a ban on any fireworks above the 210. But unfortunately, the only way to enforce that is if an officer sees it. But how can an officer see it if they're not there? So I urge the council to fund code enforcement and gardening, of course. As far as I know, I think there are 3 gardens in the city of San Bernardino, one at the Garcia Center, one on 6th and Pedley, and one on 40th. And I know one of those is run by Parks and Rec, the 6th Street one. And the Garcia Center is kind of autonomous, as far as I know. I could be wrong. And I'm not sure who runs the 40th Street one. So I hope you will all take this into consideration when finalizing the budget in the future. And that's it.
Thank you. Next speaker. Madam City Clerk, can you announce their names again one more time? There's 2 more, I believe.
Ronika and Natalia Saka.
Natalia? Please state your name. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Natalia Saka, and I am the Regional Policy Advocate with the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, also known as CHIRLA. Our office is based in San Bernardino City, and we serve the entire Inland Empire. We are dedicated to the rights and well-being of immigrant communities, as well as refugee communities. Today, I urge you to include immigrant communities in San Bernardino City budget through 3 key investments. The first one would be to expand immigration legal services, especially for asylum and removal defense, and fund community education programs like Know Your Rights and civic engagement workshops. The second one, it would be to ensure immigrant inclusion in city programs by providing language access and making translation and interpretation standard across all departments. The third one, to improve public safety with road repairs, better lighting, and cleaner streets. We also propose partnering with immigrant-led groups for community cleanup events that build trust and connection. I have emailed my proposal to the council, and CHIRLA is always eager to collaborate and meet with you to discuss how we can move these priorities forward. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
That concludes the speakers.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to discussion. There's one item fiscal year 2025-26 budget workshop. Could we begin with staff's presentation?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Bill Gardo, your interim city manager. We have several of us this evening that will be presenting a PowerPoint. We had this first budget workshop on April 29th, so this is our second budget workshop with the City Council, with the goal of getting our budget adopted in June for the July 1st new fiscal year. Following my remarks, I'll turn it over to Zuiva Ruiz, who'll turn it over to Jeannie Fortune, and then Azam from Public Works after that, and then I'll wrap it up, and then we'll take questions on the budget. Tonight, we're going to talk about the executive summary and key highlights, the proposed 25-26 general fund budget revenues and expenditures, position summary and fund balance. We'll go over our capital improvement program, our total budget, which is the general fund and all other funds that make up the city's budget, and the 25-26 budget calendar. By way of executive summary, the City Council adopted strategic goals, the first being improve operational and financial capacity, focused and aligned leadership and unified community, improve quality of life, and economic growth and development. And you'll see the strategic goal was for fiscal years 2021 through 2025, and I would expect the City Council in this upcoming year to revisit or reaffirm the goals for the next 5 years. Before I get into the review of our next fiscal year, I want to highlight a very important grant program, which was Love Your Block Community Impact. It supports cleanups, murals, community gardens, and other revitalization efforts. It strengthens our partnership between residents, nonprofit, and city staff. And it also advances equity and civic engagement through our grassroots initiative. The city was recipient of the grant through the Bloomberg Foundation. We had dozens of applicants. We selected 11 of them. We distributed $18,000 throughout the 11 which were selected. We fully funded 3, but 8 of them were only partially funded of the total requested of just under $41,000. The city, with the support of the City Council, we would like to contribute the remaining $22,698 to fully fund all the qualified applicants through departmental savings. No additional appropriation is needed. I'd like to share with you the Love Your Block awarded projects. As you see on this list, a wonderful list of community-based efforts and community-led initiatives.
Just real quick, that's super awesome, so thank you so much.
Let's talk about 25-26 key highlights. We're bringing you a balanced budget amidst a complex and uncertain economic landscape. As you know, there's national, state, and local economies continue to face volatility and uncertainty. We did hear last week or 2 weeks ago, Christopher Thornburg from Beacon Economics talked about what he's called the narrative and the reality. He did state clearly that the Inland Empire, as compared to some other areas, including Los Angeles, is still growing, is still thriving, and is still moving forward. So that is a good sign for us here in the Inland Empire. Other key highlights, as we adopted or as we came to the adoption of this budget, we asked departments to reduce and trim their budgets by 5%. We also are proposing 6 months targeted non-safety hiring deferrals to align with organizational priorities. What that means is we're going to keep positions, vacant positions open, only hire when critically necessary, and these vacancies throughout the organization create opportunities to refine and retool. At the conclusion of our budget adoption, I'd like the organization to bring forward a list of one-time programs and or projects to support citywide operations and initiatives. These would be items for council consideration much after we adopt this budget, and if the budget shows improvement. There'd be things like additional street segment work, facility improvements, operational enhancements. The organization prepared a nice list We're not prepared to have the council review that or adopt that in this budget, but we should bring something back first quarter for you guys to take a hard look at some one-time items that support the organization. I will then turn it over now to Zuiva, talk about our revenues.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. My name is Zuiva Ruiz. So we'll go into the proposed revenues just specifically for general fund. So what we have before you, we show you what we've projected at year end, and this was brought to you at mid-year. And so year end for fiscal year 24-25 is projected to end for revenues at $222.6 million. What the city staff and city manager's office has projected for this upcoming fiscal year is a modest 2.5% increase based off of actuals. So our projected for the fiscal year 25-26 is 228.2 estimated. So again, these revenues, when they're forecasted, we acknowledge that there's external uncertainty, and so we rely on the verified local trends and data that we see before us. Conservative assumptions are applied to protect the city against volatility from external factors. The proposed 26 budget revenues is a $6 million growth, and this does reflect real and sustainable recovery that the city has projected. This isn't reliant on temporary spikes. And then the city staff also forecasts just to safeguard the city's fiscal health, again, against that volatility that is beyond our control. As we go into the general fund expenditures for next year, again, as our city manager included, there was a 5% decrease proposed, and that amounted to about $10.7 million being decreased. At the same time, the city does have to account for some cost increases that naturally come with running an organization. This includes step advancements, the rising retirement contribution costs, health benefits, and then our growth in our unfunded accrued liability. The expenditure budget strategies, so again, we do have a proposed 6-month non-safety hiring deferral just to strategically align the hiring needs and organizational priorities while keeping in mind fiscal sustainability for the city. This hiring deferral is estimated to save about $8.1 million in the city's fund balance and preserving the city's fund balance. Staff will continue to monitor throughout the year fiscal conditions and may recommend extending the deferral. Also, if revenues come back better, we will always come back to City Council and recommend lifting the hiring deferral. And then council updates will be provided on a quarterly basis, just given the external volatility that we see. Make sure that city staff and city manager's office keeps the city council updated of the financial condition of the city. So in total, our proposed expenditures for next year, again, is $228.2 million, and this is a 3.9% decrease from adopted, but our projected 24-25 year-end actuals that we brought forward at mid-year is estimated to be $215.6 million. And now I will hand it over to Jeannie for
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Jeannie Fortune with the Finance Department. So what we have added tonight is our proposed reallocation. Sorry. Try the one on the side. Maybe I turned it off. We need a, there, we got it. Okay. I'm sorry, technical difficulties. So, a couple of years ago, for the council members that were here at one point, certain line items for street maintenance, street light maintenance, traffic signs and markings were actually approved. Unfortunately, whether they were to be an annual cost versus a one-time cost was misunderstood, I think, at the time. So what we are trying to propose here are these line items that were in the current year's budget to be reallocated to the gas tax fund, and we will make it an annual cost in the gas tax fund. So currently, we actually receive 6.5 to 7 million annually in this fund. Our actual expenditures have been right at 4.5 million. The 2.9 that we are requesting to reallocate is actually coming from the existing gas tax fund balance. We have that today. But for future years, we might only have 2 or 2.5 million to sustain these line items. So we will work with Ernesto to see what it can do so as not to put the gas tax fund in a deficit. But for the current year of 25-26, we will use the gas tax fund balance at this point to reallocate these line items into the gas tax fund. So when we come for budget adoption in 2 weeks, it will be included as part of the gas tax fund budget.
What is it what we bring in every year about on the gas tax?
I'm sorry, sir?
What is it we usually bring in a
Between
in a year?
6.5 and 7.
Councilmember,
not-
can you be recognized?
And that's
If you would
only
like
the,
to speak, please,
yeah, the gas
in the
tax
future.
fund, I'm sorry. That does not include the RMRA fund. You know, we have rehab gas tax, and we have regular gas tax. This is the tax for every gallon of gas that everybody,
So is that what we bring in every year, is about 6 million?
Yes.
Oh, okay, and then what we're proposing, maybe if we were to do this in future years, so we would never actually exhaust the gas tax if we were to keep
no.
this every
We
year?
will always balance.
We'd always
yeah,
be balanced.
Just like our other funds. So if we need to reduce this some years more than others, we will do so that we're always meeting the revenues that we will get in the gas tax fund.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Then we'd like to move to position summary. So at adoption, I believe the city council approved 951 positions, so that was July 1st of last year. During the course of the year, these are the positions that council approved. So these were staff reports that came individual, that were approved between July and last month. And we have them listed, as you can see, homeless outreach coordinators, library assistants, a management analyst, several police officers, and a police sergeant, totaling 16 positions. Please bear in mind, all of these are not general funded. Some are grant funded, COPS grant, CDBG grant, and this one for the police officers, that was the third amendment with the San Manuel Community Credit Fund. It was restricted for police services. Yeah. Also during the year, we had 6 positions that expired due to a workforce grant ending in December of last year for a net of 10. That's why our current year, which our amended position summary is 961, which again, we're not changing, so we're just rolling that same 961 to 2526. And then we have fund balance, but, okay, why is that not the same? But, okay, we have fund balance. And we brought this up 2 weeks ago. So our operating budget on our reserves, what we had proposed to the, do you have a question?
Yes.
Please forgive me. I just had a quick question. The 486 in PD is sworn and unsworn? The 486 is sworn and non-sworn, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yes,
Sworn-
Councilmember?
Yes, sworn is 315, isn't it? Not 4.
I think the question was, does 486 include sworn and non-sworn?
Both.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, it
yeah,
does.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. You could. Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
So in the previous page, we had 2425 authorized of 961, and our proposed is 959 because the city manager's office is eliminating 3 positions.
That's correct.
One was transferred to the finance department, and they are eliminating 3 positions. I'm sorry, on to fund balance? Are we
Yes,
good?
please.
Yes. Fund balance, as we projected 2 weeks ago, sorry. We are only requesting the strategic use of $23.8 million, specifically for CIP projects, of which Azam is going to give a summary. So again, what we've always shown is a 20-year history and where we are today. And again, the only use of reserves at this point is for CIP. So if you go to the next one. Yes, and as I would mention, the city's municipal code requires a reserve of 25%, even with the use of 23.7 million in reserves. We are still showing a fund balance of 75%, and that is shown in detail on the next slide. Yeah, so we highlighted in yellow what we were going to use from the reserve. So we're going down from 198 to 172, but again, it's still at 75% versus the city's required 25%. With that, we are going to turn it over to Azam to give just a brief summary of the CIP.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Azam Jabsheh, City Engineer. Tonight, we're going to discuss the Capital Improvement Program city budget, part of the city budget workshop. We're going to talk about the Capital Improvement Program CIP, project delivery summary, and then the CIP budget summary. Basically, what I'd like to discuss is, and I discussed the last workshop, is the different phases we go through to deliver a project. Basically, we go through planning, design, and construction. Each one of these phases is split into 5 divisions: planning, design, construction. Like in planning, we go through preliminary engineering, design, bid, award, and then design, construction, bid, and award, and construction. I just want to explain to the City Council and the members of the community why projects usually takes 1 to 4 years. The only thing I want to discuss tonight, just for the simplicity of presenting the CIP, is the design, is what happens during design. We go through multiple reviews to make sure we have solid plans when we go out to construction. We go through 30, 60, and 100% plan review. We address all issues with environmental issues that we have, right-of-way issues, hazardous materials that we encountered during the design, when we discovered them during the design, cultural and historic preservation, which is becoming an issue on grant-funded projects like CDBG projects, storm water management features such as detention basins, bioswale, and infiltration trenches. And in construction, typically construction takes a little bit longer these days, for the simple fact is because of the unforeseen site conditions, material price escalation, which is becoming a challenge since the economic uncertainty that the entire country is facing these days, and then delivery of material that is a major issue, in material supplies coming from overseas coming into this country, especially if it's steel, doors, we have for building projects and so forth. CIP project, existing capital project funding needs by category. So basically, what we have existing is streets of 5.6 million, traffic control 0.5 million, general buildings of 0.25 million, parks and recreation 2 million, and then storm drain is 8 million. What we're proposing here tonight for the council is what are the proposed capital project funding needed by category. So we need for streets 22.6 million, for storm drain 0.35 million, for parks and recreation 2.1 million, for general building 3.3 million, for traffic control 1.2 million. So in combination of for year 25-26, we're requesting 13.43 from Measure S, and then 16.15 in special funds, and 29.5. So the total is 29.58 in proposed project funding. This is the summary of all the previous, the two slides that we have discovered. So buildings, from the general fund, we're going to be using 3.225 million, and other funds 250 for a total of 3.47 million. Parks and Recreation 2.1 million, and then other funds 2 million for a total of 4.1 million. Storm drain general fund is 8.35 million, and then streets 10 million, and then other funds is 18 million. So this is what I indicated in the last workshop is last year was the years of the parks. This year and next year will be the year where we're going to go out and pave the streets for the residents of the city. And traffic control, we're not using anything for general fund. We're going to be using other funds in the amount of 1.6. So total general fund, like Gina indicated, what we're going to be using is 23.775 million, and other funds 21.942, 21 million, and for a total of 45,717,000. And that concludes my presentation. I will turn it to Will.
Thank you, Azam. I'll wrap up here and we'll get to questions. So the total proposed fiscal year 2025-26 budget for the general fund as proposed is $253,896,940. Next slide. The next total proposed 25-26 budget other funds is $91,783,217. By way of the budget calendar, we had a special meeting, workshop number 1 on April 29th. We have tonight's meeting, budget workshop number 2, and our proposal is to have the public hearing for budget adoption June 4th, 2025. With that, Mayor, this team is here from all departments represented to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor, if you would like to come, please just go onto the screen, add it. So far, I have Councilmember Ortiz, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa. Thank you. Followed by Councilmember Canas.
Thank you. So, one, again, thank you for covering the difference for the love of your block. I think those type of investments are extremely key. And so I have a question for public Park and Rec first.
Oh, sure.
Is it possible when we're hearing these, these one-time things, and, I know we have community here that are talking about like the community gardens, the small investment. Is that something that's also planned to be able to help with the maintenance of that?
So I guess, well, first off, good evening, Mayor and council members. I do have to emphasize something about the amount of parks and turf that we cover. We have 34 parks, 508 acres that we essentially cover. We have 2 major landscape contracts that assist us, and by us I mean in-house staff, in essentially cleaning up the city and beautifying it and trying to do as much as we can with everything we have with our limited resources. So if the question is, do we need additional funding for the community garden as an example, the answer is yes, we would need additional funding for something like that. Unfortunately, community garden does fall on the lower priority of things because we obviously have parks that need maintaining, that need landscaping, and again, when you have 34 parks, 504 acres, it is not an easy task. I think we do a very good job at it in light of that. But certainly what we can do is try to leverage a lot of the volunteer groups that are out there. The very nature of a community garden is for the community itself to be involved in helping that. That is not to minimize the concerns that the people that participate in the community garden might have, because certainly we would not expect them to repair the irrigation, as an example, if it's irrigation that we're responsible for. Certainly making it a safe community garden falls on us as well. But the real challenge with this is that some of these community gardens are a little bit older, and they really do require a completely new upgrade to them to get them to that pristine shape. So maybe that answers your question. If not, please let me know.
It does. Thank you. Okay. Next question would be for police. It is, sorry, I saw it. So the funds, the ones that we lost, my apologies. The customers or CSOs and the other positions that were vacated due to the loss of the grant, are you looking to try and fill those permanently? Because I know they're not public safety, but are they still important positions?
I would have to answer that by saying there's not a single position in our department that's not important.
Right.
Every position, whether it's sworn or unsworn, supports the public safety mission. So those positions are valuable, and the reason that we expanded those positions initially was for cost savings because of how much a sworn person costs the city. So the whole objective is to utilize as many non-sworn personnel as we can to accomplish the public safety mission, to do things that a police officer would normally be taken off the streets to do. So reducing those means that we will, A, either need more police officers to do them, or they will just go undone.
So are you looking to re-up your youth works grant, or are you just trying to recruit just non-sworn, based out of your budget for the 2 records tech and the 4 CSOs?
We would love to re-up the grant.
Okay, okay, cool. All right, thank you. And then I think that's what I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll need some financial interpretation here and some assistance with figuring some of this stuff out. In regards to the sales tax and Measure S, they just appear to be, on the proposed revenues, they appear to be kind of like a 1-to-1 ratio. Is that something that's normal or something? Because I'm looking at some of the projected and actuals, and it almost seems to be kind of identical to each other. Is that accurate?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I'll go back to that slide. Give me 1 second. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, so sales tax, it does have a approximately 1.5% decrease from the projected year-end actuals. Again, sales tax and Measure S is projected with the assistance of the consultant that the city retains for sales tax. And so these numbers are projected, again, by those consultants. What we've been told is, given the volatility with the current economic state, we can expect to see sales tax to be flat within this upcoming year. Again, this is subject to revision should the economy have a pickup. What you see in contrast with the Measure S, the benefit that the city has with Measure S, this is a 1% full return to the city. The sales tax is pooled with the county. And so that's why in Measure S, we have a 3.8% increase from the projected year ends of this year versus what we're projecting for the upcoming year. Sales tax is just subject, again, to the share of the county pool.
Okay, and that makes a little bit more sense. So what percentage of that sales tax, or what percentage does the city actually receive from sales tax? Not Measure S, but from sales tax. What is the actual percentage? No, I mean, so when you go buy something, what is the percent of sales tax that you're paying to the city? Like, what's the?
This.
Go ahead, sir, it's on.
Okay, yeah, so the normal sales tax is 7.75%. 1% of that comes back to the city in terms of sales tax. So he was exactly right. That top line includes state and county pool, and so we have to share that with other agencies, but the Measure S sales tax is 100%.
So the city doesn't get that 7 points. So that's what I wanted
Yes,
to,
correct.
for the public to be aware of. No, that's not my question, but I appreciate it. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that not really a point, but it's obvious that the majority of the revenue that the city collects comes from sales tax, right? And so it's important for us to be business friendly in this city. I mean, it's very important, because if we're not business friendly, our revenues suffer because of that. And so part of what I wanted to also focus on was planning. I'm constantly receiving concerns, issues, hiccups, roadblocks, whatever, what have you, because, I don't know if they're understaffed or if we have antiquated systems. I would like to, and just at a quick glance of what the handout we just received, it looks like we have one senior planner vacancy with 3 or 4, I'm not sure how many total we have, or how many total planners we have, but that's one of the issues that I get, one of the calls that I get, is why does it take so long for me to be assigned a planner? I just want to ensure that we have the appropriate amount in that department so that we are business-friendly, so that we can open up more businesses, so that we can attract more businesses, to make it easier for them to open up in the city of San Bernardino and not look at somewhere else at a neighboring city and say, it's easier to open up somewhere else compared to San Bernardino. So are we appropriately staffed in that department, or do we need to look into the future, possibly, maybe not this budget, but next budget, if we're not able to do that, because I know we're making cuts? Is it something that we need to look at moving forward with appropriate staffing? Because I get these calls all the time.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Councilmember Figueroa, I think I need to differentiate between projects that go through a discretionary process. That is guided by the Permit Streamlining Act. So which means if you're applying for a conditional use permit or variance or something, it goes through a process. So there's a 30-day review that we have to go through. And if it has environmental implications, like a negative deck, an EIR, or whatever, it takes time. So there's a time factor. So at the very minimum, if you're applying for a CUP, you're looking at about 90 days before we can actually bring the item up before the DRRC or even the Planning Commission. On other projects that are just kind of over-the-counter, what you call ministerial projects, those two would hit a snag because not everything that goes through ministerially is governed by planning. We get a ministerial project over the counter, it comes to planning, we do whatever we need to do, then it goes to land development, then it goes through perhaps plan check. And our efficiency is totally reliant on the efficiency of other divisions, especially external divisions, that are, the water department has to do this. And sometimes people kind of misrepresent the fact that everything is coming out of planning. Having said that, I think with our current planning, with our current staffing level, we are comfortable. We have enough projects to go through. I have always advocated that we try to get things through the pipeline a lot faster because I know what it's like on the other side. Time is money. And so from that standpoint, I'm encouraging us to kind of push things forward and look for ways where we can actually make things work faster. Are there state legislations that require us to skip certain steps? We're more than happy to do that. But in general, we have one principal planner, 2 senior planners, 2 associate planners, and 2 assistant planners. And we have a planning aide coming on board. So maybe we could use another body, but I don't want to have people who are just waiting around for things to happen. I think what we have failed to do in the past is try to make people understand how the process really works for us. But I'm open to suggestions, and I don't want to have a staff full, a house full of planners who are just sharpening pencils. People have to, do what they need to do. And, I've responded to inquiries, calls, something is getting delayed. Sometimes, it's just a matter of pushing a few buttons and things kind of go through the system.
Thank you, and I am
Mayor Pro
profoundly
Tem, if I
appreciative.
can add one more element, which is critical. The city has embarked on a very extensive software upgrade, which will allow the submittal of plans electronically.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that capability now, but we have the software purchased and through a series of a process and project, we're going to get that done, and which is will make it a lot more efficient for our developer community to submit everything electronically.
Yeah.
All the information gets corrected and sent back electronically. It'll speed up the process. We're not there
Absolutely.
yet, but we will.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
and I
City Manager.
appreciate that explanation because we don't always get the whole
know.
picture.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're appropriately staffed. The issue sounds to me like it's bureaucratic red tape is what it really sounds like.
Yes.
And so I would hope that we as a council, when we move forward, we start setting, as we set goals together moving forward, we can identify some of those things so that we can start streamlining that process because again, the majority of our revenues come in from sales tax.
Yes.
And if we're not opening up doors for businesses, then we're not generating any additional revenue as well.
Absolutely.
And so we need to look at that and streamline that process. So I appreciate that
Thank you.
that explanation, and I hope that we as a council can look for ways to streamline that process, perhaps cut some of that red tape.
Yes.
And make it easier for businesses to open up so that we can provide the other services that the community is demanding.
Absolutely.
Like O&M. That's certainly something that is desperately needed. And I'll transition into O&M right now. Yes, Fred.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Any updates on the one-stop shop?
Okay.
I'm being asked by my colleagues here to ask about that, since I have the floor.
Since
I have the floor right now.
Do you want to talk about it, Bill?
Yes, well, it is relevant. We've had conversations with Vanner on what we need to do. I need to have a further conversation with the council as to what that means. Just from an outside perspective looking in, you're going to split departments. You're going to take a department that's in 201, 203, split them, put half of them in a one-stop shop. It may not be as efficient as we'd like it to be, but I'd like to have a conversation with the council and with community development.
Yeah, I know. I think we've now been offered both options, doing it with 201 building, and then there was then there was the proposal to do it at Vanner Tower. Do you know if staff is going to bring that back to us, or have they made their mind up?
We'll come back to you.
We're going back to the 201 building?
We'll come back to this council.
Oh, okay. All right, for a final decision on where we'll
Yes.
set up? Okay. With that, that one-stop shop, that was just economic development, or was community development? Was it both?
With the one-stop shop, it was community development, which would mean that everybody that touches a permitting process would be in one central location.
And that was business license, community
Yeah, business
development,
license,
public works,
planning.
everyone that touches that aspect, right?
Absolutely, including business license, yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So,
Because
yeah.
I would, something that I think we had committed as a council to look back on was when they split community and economic development. We now have, the position, when it was first proposed to the council, was a total of, I think, 8 positions, and 6 of them were managers, and 2 were analysts. Right now, a majority of that department or that division is vacant, and we lost our director there, who served, I think, less than a year. I would think maybe, we haven't approved the budget yet, maybe consideration of maybe putting those back together. We gave it a chance. I would love for council to, or for maybe staff to come back and say whether they think we should continue to commit to this, or if we should put both of those departments back together. Because I don't know if I've seen much, and the few staff that are on that, in that department that was recently created,
Yeah.
they can go kind of fold back in. So maybe it's something staff can consider for even this
Absolutely.
budget.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at having these structured vacancies for a minimum of 6 months.
Yes.
And maybe by folding these back in, what it does is it opens up our ability to fill certain positions and then
Right.
leave others vacant.
Councilman Sanchez, one thing I have had a discussion with the city manager about is for staff to have an avenue for us to bring to you some of the things that we want to work on, because we don't get a chance to do that. We are usually, responding to council wants this, council wants that, and which is not a bad thing. But there are also things that we would like to propose to the council that I think if you heard them and if you listen to them, you may like them. For example, this proposal of bringing the two departments back together again. I seem to like the idea because what economic development does is heavily reliant on what we do in the planning department, with various, slight changes, but it's not something that maybe in a different community, it could be a standalone department by itself, but from where we are today and how things are in the city, I think it would make a lot of sense to have those 2 departments as one.
Well, council member, we'll bring some ideas back for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Mayor Pro
can I
Tem,
continue?
yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And to CDH department, thank you to the employees and the staff there as well. I spoke about streamlining services in regards to planning. My question, my transition to that would be with O&M and Ernesto. I know that we can task you with anything, and you're the person that will definitely just get it done. You're a go-getter. What I would like to do, if possible, I'm not sure if there's something we can do to kind of untie his hands to make sure that he's able to get out there and take care of some of those things so that we streamline that department as well. Currently, it falls under Public Works, right? And so I'm
Yes.
not proposing any new department, but I don't know if something that happens within Public Works kind of creates any bureaucracy for O&M. Would it streamline it if we create a subcategory for him or something where we untie his hands to be able to say, hey, go out there, get it done. This is important, street maintenance, street lights, traffic signs, markings, all of those things. Am I out of line by suggesting something like that? Or
actually-
is it, please?
Actually, on page 3 of your city manager's message, under major budgetary changes, third paragraph says, establish a maintenance and operations department headed by a newly created position of Director of Maintenance and Operation. The position, control, headcount of the organization will not change.
Good.
So that is a recommendation
Good.
from
I
my
was setting you up
office.
for that answer, so thank you so much for.
Okay, thank you.
See, we play off of each other
Okay.
well here. So,
Thank you.
no, I appreciate that. I certainly, I think it's a great idea because I think, I have trust and confidence in Ernesto to be able to get out there and take care of those things.
Sure.
I certainly support him being able to get out there. This is another thing that I get a lot of calls about is street lights and street maintenance
Sure.
and anything that we can do to, again, streamline, cut any bureaucratic red tape. Let's support that. I'm in favor of that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, what we will do is adopt the budget as presented, and then on July 1, Finance and their team will then take Public Works and break them into two. And we'll come back with budgetary adjustments and so forth. Right, Jeannie?
Yes, so what we will do when we adopt the budget, one of the recommendations will be to break out the Public Works Department into two. And then when we actually print the adopted book, they will be separated.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. That's, Mayor, I think that's all my questions for right now. I might come back a little later. if I
No
may.
worries.
Thank you.
Excellent questions. Thank you so much. Councilmember Canas, followed by Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, because those were some great questions, and they kind of facilitated some of the thoughts that I was having. This is new for me, so please bear with me. And for me, I'm a very black and white person. So when we talk about budget cuts, I really have to kind of understand what exactly that means as far as the impact to our constituency. You know, for me, I'm like, what we could see, touch, and feel, that's what really resonates with our constituents. The things that are at top priorities are homelessness, public safety, infrastructure, and economic development. And so when we're saying that across the board, we're having in every single department to facilitate cuts that are 5%, what does that mean? I know that we've also balanced the budget with some vacancies, so there's obviously some positions that aren't going to be filled. So if we could possibly go department by department to be able to understand and quantify what is that budget cut. For me, I have some numbers here, but I don't know that mine are accurate, so I would love to go with yours. But then also, if we can maybe hear from the respective departments, so we can say, you know, we're cutting, what exactly are we cutting? You know, is that tree trimming? Is that, you know, services in PD? What does that mean?
Yes, Councilmember Canas, when we actually requested departments to cut, we, Mr. Gallardo informed them that, yeah, it will be up to them where they can cut, what 5% to choose, whether it be positions, O&M, or maintenance, and still keep essential levels, which they did. And as you said, I believe all the departments are here, and they can actually explain exactly what part of their budgets they did cut to still keep, again, essential required levels to the community. And
Okay, Thank you. And I really want staff to know, you guys have done an amazing job. So this isn't anything to be like an I got you moment. Like, this is really for us, council, to really understand what our true financial picture is so that we can make the appropriate decisions going forward, because we're cutting 5% for this year's proposed budget, I'm sorry, for the 25-26 proposed budget. We really need to have an understanding, if we're cutting X, Y, Z, what are we doing intentionally to build that back up? So we have to know that. So if we could, I'm kind of going from what are the number one concerns with constituents is homelessness. Homelessness and public safety kind of go hand in hand. So if I pick on you, Chief Darren Goodman, if you could please come to the podium, if you can kind of help us quantify what the amount of cuts are for PD and what you had to cut.
The conversations that we've had included, considering first and foremost preserving our sworn staff. And the city manager's office was very deliberate in making sure that I understood that was what their priorities were, and it matched mine as well. But as I said, when Dr. Ortiz asked her question, I look at my civilian staff as just as important because they support the public safety mission. So not being self-serving, but I don't think there's any position that's not valuable. When you're talking about 5%, my question back would be, well, what 5% reduction in police services is the community willing to accept? Are they willing to accept 5% less phones being answered, 5% less traffic enforcement, 5% of anything, and what's the tolerance level of that? Now, naturally, I would like to say that nothing will be affected, but I don't know that. I know that our goal right now is just to start with the vacant positions, but I want to explain how that works. A vacant position is a position that we, of course, have been budgeted by the council because it's the desire of the council and the desire of the community for us to have a certain level of staffing. Right now, that level of staffing is budgeted at 319 for sworn. And that is clearly not what we need in a city like San Bernardino. We need more than that. So to take the positions that aren't filled, and I think we're filled at something like 309, and say we're going to eliminate the rest of them, well, that means that we won't get to that full strength, and now the positions will be absorbed in the budget proposal, and I won't have that salary savings that I once had. And salary savings allows us to have for overtime, and in this year, we had conversations about me giving back my salary savings. And it was my hope that the salary savings would be enough to cover the 5%. I'm still waiting for clear answers on whether this year's salary savings will go towards my 5% for 25-26. And if that's the case, then we will be able to go into the next year pretty much unscathed. But if I'm giving up my salary savings this year, which is close to $6.8 million, and then I have to give up another 5% next fiscal year, 25-26, well, that's a significant hit for us. And I'll just be honest with you about that. It's almost a double hit. So I don't know, and I will not say one way or the other that it won't affect service delivery, but it's my hope that it won't. I will just have to see what that looks like when those positions remain frozen. And now I have officers having to work more overtime because those positions aren't being filled. What does that look like? Does it create burnout? Does it create a situation where we are now losing officers because of the overtime? Are calls getting answered slower because we don't have full strength? I don't know.
Well,
Councilmember Canas, do you have any further questions?
I do have a lot more, but if
Please.
he wants to jump in from
Okay,
that.
Councilmember Sanchez?
I mean, I think our police department has been able to supplement a tremendous amount of the operating costs with grant funding. I mean, they're one of the most effective, they've been some of the most effective city employees at getting funds. So a lot of this, it's, I don't know if those funds are going away or not, but there's a lot of them that they've been able to save essentially the city. Something that just comes to mind here is, it seems coincidental, and Chief, tell me if I'm wrong here, but on the fireworks enforcement, it's about $88,000 That seems to coincide with the number, the revenue we get, or rather the tax revenue we get from the Safe and Sane sales.
Yes, the grant, right.
So if that Safe and Sane goes away, would that 88,000 for fireworks enforcement go away?
Absolutely.
So if we wanted to continue that, we'd have to pay that out of the general fund.
It will come out of the general fund.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
You had mentioned that you had salary savings from this fiscal year.
Correct.
So, I'm sorry, I don't know how this works, and if you're able to, so does that roll over, or is it like if you don't use it, you lose it?
Well, that's a subject of debate. I know I've asked for it, and I'm not clear on whether that will actually be granted or not. So, go ahead.
Councilmember Canas, normally, no, salary savings does not roll over. This is general fund, and I guess the phrase you used is use it or lose it. That is the phrase.
I worked in municipal government, and
So
it's an odd thing for me, because I don't quite understand that, you know, when you're coming to the end of the fiscal year, and you're like, hurry, spend, 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 so you can spend it down. I don't know, maybe that's something we can look into, because I think it should be rewarded that you have savings, not spend, 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 and spend it down unnecessarily, if it's not necessary. But that's just my take on that. I understand, maybe you guys could talk about that a little bit more in detail. Thank you, Chief Goodman. I appreciate your candor, because it is important. Again, public safety, it coincides also with homelessness. Our PD does have a hand in our homelessness and tackling that crisis in our city that is a very pervasive issue. So I do want to be able to depict really what the reality is with us having a cut in specific departments. So thank you, Chief Goodman. I would like to then ask
Hang on.
public.
I just want to jump in before he
Oh,
leaves.
PD, sorry.
If
Okay.
I could, real quick. I had a quick question. So, the actuals, though, for fireworks was only $12,000. So did we have to cover that $62,000 difference?
I'm sorry, one more time.
I know Councilman Sanchez says that the proposed was we were proposing about 88,000, but the actuals for last year was we only recovered 12,000. So do we, when you don't have enough, do we then take out of the general fund to cover that
Yes,
extra?
whatever's not supported through our reimbursements or through our grants, we cover that with overtime, which absolutely comes out of our budget.
Okay, and so with what you're saying with the 6.8, and I know we're not freezing public, sworn public, so then is there an opportunity to make sure that as, you know, for the cost that there's like the differential, like we set aside that, like a portion of the pool to carry over for the overtime costs or the additional? So I know Chief has, like, let's say, I'm just going to random numbers, so like 20, he gets the coverage of the 10, and then the other one would roll into the general fund. Is that like a possibility to look at that pool because of the complexities of coverage of police officers?
Let me just clarify something real quick, and then she can answer the technical budget question. But I want to just talk, you know, nuts and bolts, because that's what I do. If my salary savings is based on vacant positions, which it is, it's not coming from some slush fund, it's positions that I have not filled. It's a semantical game to say, well, you're not cutting positions, we're just taking your salary savings. The salary savings comes from my vacant positions. So if you take my salary savings, you're in essence taking my positions.
Theoretically, because I mean, technically, we're not vacating these positions to where you can't recruit.
You're taking the salary savings, which means that amount of money that would go towards filling those positions is no longer there. So I won't be able to hire into those positions if I don't have the budget for it.
So that's what I'm asking. So it's on a list, it says there's 10 officers. And so as we roll over the salary savings into another position, as potential candidates come forward, go through the recruitment process, are hired, then do we have to reallocate, adjust, or how do we be able to maximize the flow of people being able to hire police and utilize those funds that are not being used at the same time? That's my question.
And Councilmember Ortiz, I hope I can answer correctly. So, for example, if he has $10 in budget it is budget. Please remember, we need to collect $10 in revenue so he can spend that $10.
Right.
So let's say, you're right, he had a vacancy and he only needs $6. But if the revenue that we received is only $4, that is now $2, we would have to pull from fund balance. So let's say, like he said, if he had salary savings this year of $5 million, but if our revenue was $5 million less, there is no salary savings to roll over because we didn't receive the revenue for those savings. Yeah, see, so remember, you're right, it's his savings is against his budget, not necessarily against the revenue that we actually received.
Absolutely.
So that's what we monitor, yeah, and that's what we have to inform our departments, and that's why we requested that hiring deferral. And as we had mentioned, yeah, the finance department and the HR department, we're going to try to manage those vacancies, of course, exempting public safety because that is the city's, one of our top priorities. And that's what we have to do, yeah.
Oh, and thank you for explaining it that way, because
Yes.
one of the things that we tend to do, we focus on the cuts, but we don't focus on the revenue. How are we going to rebound from the cuts? That intentional focus on building our city coffers back up is just as important of a discussion as the budget cuts. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Okay, Public Works.
Because Public Works consists of both engineering and operations and maintenance right now, Ernesto and I are going to tag team on your question.
Oh, I appreciate that. And similar questions, if you guys can quantify what the actual budget cut is for Public Works and what that means as far as, service delivery or whatever the case may be for our constituents.
Sure. So I can start by saying that we were, in a way, fortunate that, and this is going to seem a little bit odd, but when the homeless injunction hit, it prevented us from doing some work in some of the parks, specifically the overseeding of parks because we had so many encampments there. So that created quite a bit of savings for us in the O&M budget. So at least for this current rendition of this, we were fortunate to use the 5% cuts, or to use that for the majority of the 5% cuts in O&M. Going forward, that could potentially be problematic. And for those that may not know, I know this is common in the Midwest, but overseeding is essentially a process where you cut down the turf and essentially you seed it so that it becomes greener in the grass turf in parks. So we did not go through that process, obviously, this year. We only selected a few parks that perhaps did not have as many homeless encampments in them. So we were able to use the bulk of those savings for the 5%, but we went ahead and rolled that over, and going forward, we will have that reduction reflected in that contract, specifically the Parks Landscape contract, which is $3.6 million. A good bulk of that is, again, for overseeding. So that's one example where there is no immediate impact to us because the bulk of that came from that. So perhaps that answers the question as far as the immediate impact. But going forward, it is something that perhaps does have to be addressed if we have a desire to ensure that all the parks basically have green grass turf. So I think that helps to explain for the O&M side of it. While I'm up here, I can mention the 5% reductions in the Parks and Recreation Department. Obviously, we've been through some transition. There's a lot of staff turnover, and we've had some different challenges where we had to postpone festival or some of our bigger events. The festival is coming back at some point. We're going to try to coincide it with the grand opening of Secum Lake. But that's a little bit further out. So we were able to pull 5% from the event funding for that to help us to not affect what I call the core operational things that we do. So so the bottom line on this is our operations weren't impacted because of those things. But had we not had those things, then we probably would have seen some additional operational impacts to that.
I'm looking on here, and I don't know if it's yours or PD's, but the park rangers, there's 3 vacancies. Is that a contract, or are they actively working with us?
I'll defer to PD
Okay.
about the park rangers.
Okay.
So we've absorbed under our budget park rangers and the Redwood security contract. So if you notice that there's an amended adjustment that shows a little bit higher on our budget, that's what that reflects in addition to some of our grants.
Okay, so we do have park rangers, but they're not city positions? Because they're listed in, that's what was confusing me, they're listed in our employee list,
No, I
but.
think they're actual city.
So
but-
it's kind of a long story, but
Okay.
we wanted to hire park rangers. We had recruited for them, tried to find folks with the qualifications. We could not. So we pivoted, and now we're expanding the security contract and using the security to do what the park rangers would have been doing.
Thank you, thank you.
And I did see a Redwood uniform with the park ranger vest, so I did notice that today. Thank you.
All right, so for the remainder of Public Works.
Part of our significant savings was the fact that that our budget continued to have the security contract there, and as a part of it, we had that transferred over. So that counted as a savings. On the fleet facilities and custodial side, because we are running a lot more newer vehicles under the enterprise contract, we are seeing savings in terms of our fuel usage, our maintenance costs, and things like that. So a lot of the impact was really absorbed. On the engineering side, one of the things that we are working on for the next fiscal year is we have not been doing job cost accounting in which we're charging our engineering teams to the actual projects. What you'll see in the next upcoming fiscal year is that we are going to start charging to the projects. What that means is it's kind of like running a consulting business. If you run a consulting business and everybody's on overhead, you're going to go out of business pretty quick. You want everybody on direct projects. That's what we're starting to shift to, and that'll help to kind of absorb it. So it won't be an effect as far as a loss of service, a delay of services as much as it is allocating the cost of labor to a direct project as opposed to carrying it on overhead.
What is the actual cut amount? Like, are you able to quantify that for us?
Yeah. I'll ask Stacy Hogue, my senior management analyst, to kind of step up and give us the number.
Hi, Stacy Hogue, Senior Management Analyst, Public Works. Right now, we moved the Redwood security to the police department, so they actually absorbed about 1.9 million, a little over that, and so that really helped us reduce our bottom line of our budget. In the fleet, we reduced our gas and our fuel, I think about 300,000, but those were actually amounts that we didn't even spend in this fiscal year, and we budgeted additional money next fiscal year, so we think that we're going to be well within the ranges to keep the fuel and the fleet going.
Thank you. All right, and if we could move to CDH, please.
Councilmember Barr, did you have a question? I see your
I
hand
do.
waving.
And it was a follow-up to that enterprise. Are we looking into the current charges that we're getting from enterprise? And so that was a big,
What we're going to do is that, as we brought to you before, we've suspended the enterprise contract from any new vehicles. We do have the commitments that we already have made to the contract, but we are engaging in a total look at our fleet, which is going to include an assessment of all of our vehicles, what needs to be replaced in order to fine-tune it as to whether or not we should be leasing or whether or not we should be outright buying the vehicles. That process is ongoing, but we heard very clearly to look at the costs, and that's what we're working on.
okay, because there was some current vehicles that were charging our city way overpriced. I want to make sure that enterprise understands that we cannot be paying over $1,000 a month for a vehicle.
Unfortunately, the pricing of a vehicle for lease payments is based on the value of the vehicle and the amortization schedule. So if we buy, and the example is the animal control trucks, those are very expensive vehicles when compared to a sedan or a standard pickup truck. You are going to pay a higher amount for those. That was what we brought to you before, and that's why you were seeing that. But most of the charges are within the range of what was originally proposed to you in enterprise. But when you do buy a larger vehicle, a more expensive vehicle, you are going to pay more for it, just like if you went in and bought I'm going to date myself here a little bit, a Toyota Tercel versus a Humvee, you're obviously going to pay quite a bit difference in terms of lease payments on that.
I drive a Toyota, it's okay.
Okay, I do too.
Okay, thank you.
So, sorry, go right ahead.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Councilwoman Knaus, we at the Community Development and Housing had nothing to cut from staff. Our budget is pretty tight the way it is. We're lucky enough that housing gets a lot of CDBG funding, and we can augment staff. Planning staff is already down to the bone. We have some vacant positions, but even if we touch those, we will not be able to fill them any time if we need those positions. So we were lucky enough that in 2024, when we came in front of the City Council and talked about the budget for our general plan update, Council allocated some amount. I think it was about $1.6 million on top of what we currently had. So that's why we took our 5% from. We couldn't touch our current staffing levels.
So you're saying you really didn't have much room to cut?
No, we don't.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
So what Councilwoman Knaus brings up in her other comments, and Councilmember Figueroa, though, is the revenue drivers. Because this is great, but no one's talked about how to get money back. And what's important, because we are a tax-heavy, reliable city, is, for me, and what Councilman Figueroa was talking about earlier in development is, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, sorry, is code enforcement. So we currently have 17 officers on staff. It looks like we have 2 vacancies. And to me, code enforcement is as equal as important as public safety is, because it is a public safety issue. And the burden, PD right now is at the best levels that they've been in 25 years. Mm-hmm. But they can't carry that forever on their own. Right. And that's what we've always done. You're going to be homeless, you're going to be beautification, you're going to be community outreach, but it's the driver and code enforcement. And what I'd like to see is how, especially because the council's been awesome in bringing back this potential plan where we can start utilizing fees towards blighted areas and maintenance. So I guess it's more of a comment thing.
Let me talk about what we're doing in code enforcement.
Okay.
Some of the things that you're actually talking about today are kind of what I would call structural issues that have existed with that department for a long time. And it's not because we don't have enough bodies, it's because we're not utilizing those bodies in a way that we should have been able to do that, and that's because of prior management. So now, we have 17 plus maybe 2. Well, I would say just call us 20, a staff of 20 people. If we went proactive, even without doing anything, if every code enforcement officer went out in the field every day, for 5-6 hours a day, and wrote 5 complaints and issued citations, I think you would see a drastic change. And that's what we're trying to do now, is we're restructuring that department, whereby our code enforcement officers spend more time in the field. We're not only going to respond to, public requests for, this guy has trash on his property or whatever. We're actually going to go out into the community and we're going to inspect them and we're going to drive around. And when we see these violations, you'll be surprised as how much revenue we'll be able to bring in if we do that. And we've already started doing that.
That's exactly my hope.
Yes.
Because I know in Luis Ojeda is a big proponent of just, if you just drove around the city.
Oh, yeah.
We would, and our own properties as well.
Absolutely.
So another question I had, and I'm not sure if it's in your budget or Howe's budget, but cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
How much money are we getting from cannabis?
Well, okay, so $2 million, about $2 million.
How much are we supposed to be getting from cannabis?
About $2 million. So because and the reason is this. So when cannabis first came to the city council, that was back in the day when everybody was kind of rosy-eyed about what cannabis is going to do or not do. We expected for this to be a winner. $11 million and so, but as more communities issued licenses, as state restrictions to run a cannabis operation in the city, taxes alone between city and state is about 60% of their revenue. We have 17 dispensaries in the city. I would not recommend increasing that number, because if we think we're going to increase revenue by increasing the number of dispensaries, I think what we're doing is we're watering down the competition. So when the competition is so watered down, sales go down, operators give up their licenses, because it's a very, very tough industry to be in. We are one of those communities that doesn't allow outdoor grow. Other areas, more remote areas of the state where they allow outdoor grow, you can see a difference in how the revenue flow. Because in order to operate a grow facility indoors, what it costs to renovate an existing building, the ventilation and irrigation to water and water those plants on a regular basis, the lamps, energy cost, it's a very expensive venture to get into. So what we're getting right now is just about $2 million.
No, and thank you. And I thank you guys for kind of walking us through that. Again, I do think it's imperative for us to really know what this means. It seems like there's been a lot of reallocations, kind of shifting of fundings. Obviously, we're saving funds, or saving monies because of the unfilled vacancies. So the reality is we're balancing our budget off of some unstable items. Not being able to fill vacancies, reallocating funds from different departments, shifting things around, that is the reality.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of call it what it is. And to Councilwoman Ortiz's point, we really do have to have that intentional focus on how we are going to build our city coffers back up, and that's our responsibility. I'm not placing that on staff. You guys are amazing, and I appreciate that you guys, like you said, we're working with what you have. There's no more to cut. I respect that, and I truly appreciate that you guys are doing the best that you can with what you have. But it's incumbent upon us as a council. We always talk about, priorities, goal setting. I really look forward to when we all can really convene, coalesce, and really get that done so that we can set those priorities that are based off what our constituents really want to see. I continue to say it, when people drive out of their, pull out of their driveway, if they cannot see it, touch it, or feel it, it's not happening. If they're pulling out of their driveway and all they're seeing is the homeless on every corner, they're seeing the blighted, dilapidated buildings, they're seeing the graffiti, that's what's real to them. That's what they feel, that's their quality of life for them. And we really have to be able to effectively change and impact that. And what we do up here, that's what impacts that. So thank you guys for your candor. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Ortiz, do you have something to piggyback with? Yes, okay.
Mr. Elliott?
Gabriel?
Mr. Gabriel?
Councilmember Ibarra have a question. Followed by Mayor Pro Tem, for you too as well, Gabriel.
Yes, ma'am.
That's okay. A little bit of history for the public who probably isn't aware. Back in 2019, we did a lot of staff cuts. A lot of it was code enforcement. We have built that team up to 17. Our director here knows, and previous managers in that department, that they have to be proactive. There's a lot of pointing fingers at people in the neighborhoods, and even I know we have the issue with the housing in apartments, that as soon as a resident complains about their landlord maybe not protecting them against mold and roof, as soon as the managers find out who reported them, they go after that tenant.
Yeah.
That should not be happening. I hope staff understands that when directors and staff gives a direction of being proactive, it means being proactive. Don't just go after one person because maybe somebody reported it, because that's going to put a lot of people against each other. And if our goal is to make the whole city clean and beautiful, we all have to work together with this. With that said, also, I think it was in 2020 or 21 when we had Mr. Mike Huntley in that department. We had approved the food vendor permits, and there was a lot of issues of food vendors on the sidewalks at nighttime. I still see them, and I don't know what happened. I know when he came to us asking us for more code enforcement officers back then, his purpose was to have officers work on the weekends and night times. I don't know if that's happening. Maybe Mr. Gabriel can clarify for us.
Yes, Councilwoman Ibarra. So, food vending, well, let me call it sidewalk vending, street vending, is regulated now by the state of California. It is not an offense to actually sell food on the streets. In a sidewalk, we can't regulate that as much as we would like to. We can regulate food vending on private property. So perhaps back then, this legislation hadn't taken effect, but currently, I think we need to be very mindful of how we address sidewalk vending going forward. Now, we're working on legislation in coordination with the Public Works Department about other types of vending, maybe for Lynn, do you want to talk about the ordinance that we're working with? Go ahead.
One of the things that we were looking at when I came back into the city a year ago, the food vending ordinance was kind of expiring. We didn't have an active food truck ordinance that defined that aspect of it. And so one of the things that I did, because I saw what had happened in Fontana with, some of the issues of the food vending, is that we suspended the program to some degree. We started issuing permits and extending them while we work on the ordinance. The ordinance is probably about 90% there. We're working now. We've got some additional information from PD. We're working with business registration to kind of bring this together, as well as recognize that these vendors do contribute an economic value to the community by sales tax that they generate and things like that. So we're trying to be very sensitive about how we regulate that community so that we don't be overly restrictive to them, while also making sure that the public health, safety, and welfare is being protected. One aspect that we are actually looking at is creating an economic zone where we can encourage food trucks, and it wouldn't necessarily be food trucks, it'd be food trailers, to be able to have a certain area that they can locate in, and that we can price that with a permitting system and things like that. So we're trying to kind of bring all of that together. We're hoping that we can get that all to you probably by mid-August, beginning of September. So that will help kind of regulate and help control and give Mr. Elliott's code enforcement a much clearer thing. They are working with us. It's a joint effort between PD, code enforcement, and Public Works.
Okay, and so being on the sidewalk is legal. On private properties, those are the ones that are being cited currently. So let's say a business owner reports a vendor on the sidewalk outside their business. Are they being notified of this new state laws and that they are legal to be there?
We are. So all our code enforcement officers are now going to go through a training process. Perhaps you want to call it a retraining process, whereby our current legislation is being made known to them so that they can actually educate those they come in contact with out in the field as to what is legal for the city to do and what is not. So if in a situation like that, an easy handout stating what the regulations are on a state level would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. As long as they're being notified and they understand that we're following the state laws.
And one of the things that the ordinance process does is that it is a permit system. So we do end up with vendors who don't go through the permit, and so those are looked at by the code enforcement as well. If they don't have a permit that has been issued by the city, then they are subject to enforcement. So it's a balancing act that those that are playing fair and doing the right things, getting the permit and everything, they're given the right to be able to vend on the sidewalks. Those that are not, that set up after hours or on weekends or certain times, those are the ones that then we focus on because they are not necessarily even following environmental health regulations and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem? followed by Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Elliott, you previously referenced code enforcement and issuing citations and on and on. And so part of my question is, look, we can give all the citations and all of that, but my question is, without partnering, I guess, so to speak, with the ACP process, I mean, do we keep track of the corrections that are made versus how much we collect in fees? Who oversees that process? What amount actually comes back to the city as far as revenue?
So that's a very good question, Councilmember Figueroa, because if a business or entity gets fined and goes through the entire process, the maximum amount of fine we can give is about $100,000. It stops there. Now, if we could go through a lien process whereby if it's a business and they don't pay the fee, that could be lien against the property, or they could actually negotiate payment of those fines with the city attorney's office, and they would reach out to the city manager's office and they would say, okay, I will pay 50% of I'll pay $50,000. Would you waive the remainder of $50,000? And then so there's a negotiation going there. So we have that avenue. But one thing I would like to I will point out to you is we need to differentiate between entities that are actually revenue generators and entities that are just there. I mean, they don't generate a lot of revenue to the city, but they occupy a lot of space. So we need to make that difference. And I think once we understand what exactly we are talking about, of course, we want to encourage every business in the city, but it's one thing when a particular business does business in the city, generates revenue in the city, as opposed to somebody who uses the city as a place to store things and then go out somewhere else to make money.
Thank you. And I certainly don't want us to be reliant on ACPs and collecting fees, because that's certainly, again, going back to being business friendly, that's certainly not the message we want to send out. But of course, if somebody is in violation and it's a severe violation, then I would hope that we are correcting those issues. And so I guess I would direct this question to to our legal department as far as ACPs. Do we have any numbers on how that process, or what we're bringing in, or how aggressive we are with the ACP process, or do we have that information? Or I know, I hate to put you on the spot there, but
yeah, I don't know offhand. I'd have to look into. We can look into that and get that. I don't know offhand.
okay, no, that's fine. I was just curious. Again, I don't want us to be reliant on that revenue, because again, that sends the wrong message. But if there's, well, it's administrative civil penalties, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
that usually works together with code enforcement.
Right. Mayor Pro Tem, we can come back with a.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gallardo, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can come back with that information for the council for your interest to see. As I understand it, you'd like to see the revenue generated from our administrative fines and citations, correct? Yeah.
Okay. It's just that it was brought up and kind of it triggered that thought. But I do have I'll yield the floor, but I do have one more question regarding parks later.
Okay.
Thank you. Great questions. Councilmember Ortiz?
Thank you. And I don't know if this is so on the proposed revenues, the investment income has declined by 60.2%. What is that? Is that
Say that again, Councilmember?
The investment income has a decline of 60.2% from the projected to the proposed. Is that finance?
That wouldn't be.
Oh, okay.
That's finance.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Ortiz. So yes, the decrease of 60% that we see for the investment income, so this is due just to interest rates being kind of volatile. This is where all of our interest is earned from the money that we have out in the in investments. So that's based off of like our investment policy, but yes, that decrease is just anticipating some volatility in the market.
Gotcha. So I guess when looking at this, and Councilman or Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa brings up a great point. I mean, one, we have a lot of work to do with blight, and so that is going to be a good possibility for us because we are so sales tax heavy. That's another source. But you know what keeps going up is property tax, and we don't get that. And yet, can anybody tell me what the cost of fire is right now for this city per year?
If I can help answer some of that question. So one of the directives you asked me when I first came on board is find out for us what is the current cost of the fire services for the city of San Bernardino versus the revenue generation for the city of San Bernardino.
Right.
So I've tasked William from my team to work on that, and we have been diligently working on that. He's reached out to the county to gather the actual calculations, the assessed valuations, and so forth. We are also working with the county fire to get the actual data. I don't think we have all of those pieces yet, but we will shortly. And when we do, we'll be bringing back a report to show you exactly what that total cost is for the city versus the revenue generation. That's a critical element, not in this budget, but it's something that's going to take a little bit of time to get to. But we're getting there.
And I think that what we need to make sure is that we do this, because FP5 was created with the city of San Bernardino. FP5 has now expanded, and so it is a shared service amongst other cities and other outliers of the county. And so I really want, the first year that one of the first years that we did this, the city received a $3 million refund in the cost differential. And so that's extremely important. And then we have forfeited any of that. And what I know is my house in 2012 sold for $58,000, and 10 years later sold for over $300,000. And so the property tax difference is a lot, and they're only continued to going up. So the city of San Bernardino, with the property of which we have, and then the future development of the downtown, we have a base there. And so we're scratching for pennies, we're cutting 5% across the board, and everybody else is living high on the hog on the city of San Bernardino's tax dollars. And so I just want to, for everybody, and I know this is a priority we have given you as a council, so that's why I'm making sure that everybody knows that we are diligent as a body in tasking you with that. And so I think that is it for tax questions. Thank you.
I have a follow-up on the fire. As part of the transition to the fire services, there was a transition of fire personnel to the county, and there was a workers' comp reimbursement. I want to know, or the council actually should understand that, I see Andrea nodding her head. Could we get the status of that, how that's going? And it should ultimately dwindle down as we continue to, provide the services over the county.
It's my understanding that it's in a type of escrow account, so it's money that's sitting there.
Bingo, yes.
So we actually reached out to legal to try to get some direction on how we can recover that, because most of our firefighters that were there that it was covering are no longer there. So that's on our radar.
So it's 100% transition is complete.
I'm not sure, it's not all of them are gone, but a majority of the officers, the firefighters that were on our books that transitioned over to the county are no longer there.
Would you know this? When was the last time it was processed?
I'm not sure.
It's
no.
okay. That's just something I just don't want us to just left hanging, and if that's something there's an obligation, I just know that there should be a winding down of that process. Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah. Any more comments, Council? Councilmember Charette.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to make a comment as all, because I'd first like to commend my colleagues. I think I don't have any questions because they've asked them all. And every time I thought I was going to ask something, someone asked it. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work that staff's done. But the comment about revenues, I think someone made the comment, I'm not sure who it was, that we always are looking to cut. And of course, revenues are difficult, and in a business that we're in, it's not easy to go out and generate more sales. I understand that, but through economic development and sales tax and a forensic audit with the county of what we're really paying for fire service and getting maybe back some of our sales tax, not sales tax, but property taxes, particularly with the redevelopment of the downtown. That would seem to me that'll be built under new standards There'd be less need for services there, perhaps, with fire service and what have you because of standards. And therefore, maybe we can say, we're not, a lot of times people think you're growing, so you're needing more services. But with the change in codes and things like that, services are actually getting maybe not needed quite as much because of efficiencies and computerization and just technology that changes. So I want to push to continue the conversation with the county about how we're getting 2 brand new fire stations. And one up at the 227 is going to be built up there. And then, of course, the one that was just opened on Del Rosa, and those are not cheap, and we're paying for those, I assume. I don't know how all that works, but we're getting good fire service. I'm not complaining about that at all, but we're paying for it. And if it's costing us, if we're being charged $50 million and it could be done for $40 million, we should know that. And I would think that on new development, we ought to be able to maybe at least participate in some of the new development. So the county gets all, maybe 40% or 60% of the new development for the downtown. But that should be a big generator, not only of property taxes, but it should be a big generator of sales tax, hopefully, when we're done. So those are really my comments. The other question I have really is, and I can get this offline, but this is great, having this list of departments, but I don't know what the colors mean exactly. I can kind of figure them out. Some of them make sense and some of them don't. So if I could just get that somehow to know what these colors mean. Some of them, it's not that critical, but we need a little bit of a legend there so I know what I'm looking at.
This is a working document, so we utilize this on a daily basis. So as we transition people out of the city, as we bring people on, it's constantly being updated.
Then
so
maybe I don't need to know what the colors mean.
It shouldn't mean anything to you. But
maybe that's more than I need to know.
I printed them last minute, so I didn't take all the colors off.
The vacancies are the important ones, and they're clearly marked.
Correct.
So I appreciate that. But other than that, just a thanks to staff and doing what they have to do to make the cuts that are not easy to be made. We've been doing that. We've had some really good years, and we've had some really poor years, and we don't know what the economy is going to bring over the next couple of years. So I appreciate all the hard work that everybody's doing. And again, to my colleagues, I was able to make a statement and not have to ask any questions. So thank you all.
Good statement, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa?
Yes, thank you. And this was for Parks, and this is out of courtesy to the couple of speakers who came out tonight. We appreciate, of course, your attendance and your time being here and asking your questions. I was going through the budget here, through the book, and I was trying to find anything to do with community gardens. Is that something in the budget, and how much is allocated to that? Because I wasn't able to find it.
So there isn't anything that's specifically allocated. Like, if you won't find a specific accounting line for community gardens. However, that can be incorporated into our landscape maintenance contracts, which, as I've mentioned, is one of our bigger contracts. The one that specifically deals with parks maintenance would basically be the natural fit for something like that. So,
Okay, and I appreciate that. Again, out of courtesy to our couple of public speakers, and I just wanted to get an answer for them as well in regards to that, their inquiry of the community garden. So, thank you. Do we know how much that might be? I'm sorry, go ahead and ask. I'm sorry.
I just, do you have to what he's asking, like a possible estimate of what that would mean to additional landscaping needs? Or would you need to go out for a bid?
Specific for those community gardens?
Yeah.
I could give you a ballpark estimate, but I'd almost rather not. But I can tell you that that specific community garden requires quite a bit of work. It requires a type of upgrade. We probably need to do some irrigation upgrades there as well. And as was mentioned, the road is basically not in the best condition. The pathway is not in the best conditions. But typically, if you're going to maintain something like that with some of the general things, because after all, it is a community garden, But just some of the general maintenance, we're probably looking at about $800 to $1,000 a month with a contract that does that type of work. And that would mean that they would come out, pick up any litter that's in the area. They would essentially look for any weeds, any rodents that essentially show up, or the ground squirrels. That would be part of that contract. And it would also depend on the type of frequency we would have these things done. Are we looking at daily? Are we looking at weekly? Could some of this stuff be done, every 2 weeks or so? I think the biggest cost would actually be the irrigation in case we ever had a main line break or any types of breaks, again, outside of the actual plots.
Mayor, I would propose that we let Ernesto go back and sharpen his pencil and look to see exactly what it needs. As I indicated, in the first quarter of next year, we're going to bring back a list of one-time things that we can do throughout the city. And maybe we add that to the list as well. So it's going to be a pick and choose list of things that if we have some additional revenues over expenses, or you want to use some of our reserves, that would be an option.
Thank you, because I know there's a huge community garden off of 6th Street near the Hope campus. That was really, for the, at that time, the mayor, Patrick Morris, was leading that effort on the community gardens. So just, thank you.
And to, oh, I'm sorry,
No, go
forgive
ahead.
me. If this is like the perfect type of project for like a Love Your Block. And so if we can look at additional grant funding opportunities, because this would be great, and then one thing though is when we do look at grant opportunities, I would always like us to also look at the possibility of also being able to match a portion of funds or attempt, so that we have that investment into what we're doing. But I think, what they're doing out there is great, so.
And thank you, Councilmember. That's exactly what I was going to recommend as well as with grants. But I'll take this opportunity, if I may, to just say thank you to Mr. Gallardo, to you, all our staff, all our directors, especially finance. Thank you for putting this great budget together for us. I know that we had to make some changes, but it's certainly greatly appreciated to Mr. Gallardo, to you, your team, to all of our employees, to all our directors. Thank you, and especially to our finance department. Thank you for putting this together as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Ibarra, followed by Councilmember Canas.
My question, I think it says, I see here cemetery caretakers under Public Works. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So I want to differentiate that. There
Is
is.
that for Pioneer Cemetery?
That is correct. It is at Pioneer, but there's two elements to it. Some of this is under Parks and Rec, and that is actually for the administration of the burials and the interments that we have at the cemetery itself. The Public Works portion of it is for the actual maintenance of the park, of the cemetery itself. That is actually part of the landscape contract that is included in our parks maintenance
So
contract.
we're looking into fixing our city cemetery soon, hopefully? Because it's really sad when you drive by Second Lake Park and that whole area where Pioneer Cemetery is, because there's loved ones there. I know not too long ago, somebody vandalized at the cemetery also. So I want to make sure that that is our cemetery. We need to take care of it for our community. And I don't know why the caretaker is vacant. I think we have administrative staff for the cemetery. I had seen an email for a staffer. So I don't know why, of all things, we don't have a caretaker.
So that there are some positions that are outdated in position control, and they're a throwback to quite a ways back. But we do have staff that are dedicated to that specific area. But you'll also have to remember that we now have contracted services for that specific location via the parks landscape contractor.
Okay.
And one of the things that I will note about the cemetery itself, it is due for an irrigation upgrade itself. It has probably some of the most antiquated irrigation in all of our parks, essentially. And because of the nature of the fact that it's a cemetery and you've got some sensitivities there, it would be a difficult task to do. But we are looking into that as well. So.
Okay, yeah, it's a little urgent. I mean, I've even seen vehicles there next to the tents. That's already, they're abusing of sacred lands over there for our loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Sanchez.
I think this is, yeah.
Go ahead.
I did have a quick question in regards to our revenue sources. Obviously, like I think Mayor Pro Tem said, one of our biggest sources of revenue is our sales and tax. have we identified or like broken that down to see what areas of our city or corridors are heavy generators of that sales and use tax? For instance, like Hospitality Lane, like do we identify that?
Yes, council member. We have a firm, HDL and Associates, that helps us with our sales tax analysis, and they can break it down by any portion of the city. They can focus on the mall, they can focus on corridors, they can focus in on wards, no, maybe not wards, but they can focus in on special locations. They also have a master list of all of our sales tax generators. That list is highly confidential. It cannot be shared with the public because it's proprietary information. So they have to be very, very careful with that information. But
And the reason for the question is to be able to focus on when I speak about being able to build our city coffers back up, like having an intentional focus on those areas that are really the revenue generators for our city. So I wanted to make sure that we're directing priorities appropriately.
right.
What we can do, Councilmember, is request something from our consultant that can be public information that we can provide council and the public, whether it's, like you said, by ward, by district, by location. Yeah, they'll be able to tell us what is confidential information and what can be shared. So we'll get back to council on that.
Okay. And then my next question, just out of curiosity, because I know logistics is pretty big in our city. We collect developer impact fees. Do those just go in the general fund, or do we quantify like how much? You said no.
No, ma'am. Developer impact fees go in each specific pot. So we do have impact fees specifically for streets, impact for parks, impact fees for parks, and a couple more.
We have
Lane
them.
can tell us those. So those are restricted funds and to be used only for certain improvements.
They are restricted.
Yeah, those, the impact fees you're mentioning, Council, is storm drain. They go into, like Jeannie indicated, parks, streets, AB 1600, which is parkland. There is some that goes into, I'm not sure if it goes into police also, some of those impact fees. Yeah, so they're spread across the entire city departments accordingly, based on the land development impact fees that we collect.
Okay, and our CFDs handle the same?
I'm not familiar with CFDs, if they're collected the same. I'm not sure if Josh is here.
So if I can maybe understand the question correctly, CFD as far as the revenue generation that's related to the CFDs.
Exactly.
So similar to the LMDs, the landscape maintenance districts, the CFDs is essentially the newer concept. The revenue that comes in is basically determined based on the needs of that specific CFD, whether it be street lights, long-term sidewalk maintenance, storm drain maintenance. And basically a calculation is using, and I'm not going to pretend to be the expert as far as how that's calculated, but a certain amount is then determined from that, and the revenue comes in to finance. And then once the CFD is approved and the program lines are set up, it basically is dispersed specifically for the landscape maintenance task, as an example, or for any additional maintenance tasks that may be in effect at that. It may also include utilities as well.
Yeah, because CFDs are different from LMDs. CFDs
Correct.
really help offset costs. So I guess I'm trying to understand, specifically like for my area in Fifth Ward, we recently established a couple of CFDs for new developments. Do those CFDs go into the general fund? Are they restricted? And then also, what are the intended uses? Is each CFD the intended use developed individually?
It is specific for that CFD. It's similar to the LMDs, where that funding is specifically used for that area. That's why they're specially taxed.
So they are restricted?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, a CFD, it's developed, it comes to fruition for a specific purpose, and the money's for that. And once you have the CFD in place, they can assess special taxes, but it's for the CFD. And so they're actually could be paying more than what someone who's not in the CFD, but that special tax, the additional revenue, is for that particular location, the CFD.
So it's, being that it's for that specific location, it could only be allocated for that specific, got it.
In general, yes. There may be some exceptions, but in general, yes. That's the whole purpose of a CFD, is for that particular location. The projects that it's, that it was formed for a particular project or a particular building or whatever, and that money has to go directly for that.
So when you say there's exceptions, what would those exceptions be?
Very rare. I mean, there's,
Okay.
everything has an exception,
Got
but,
it.
you know, yeah. Yeah, services and everything else. So I don't want to, that gets complicated, but.
I just want to ensure it's not exceptions to where we're taking monies from our LMD collections or CFD
No.
collections to go to other areas of the city.
Basically, the
No.
CFD is in the area that's established, so the money is collected from the property owners in that area to fund maintenance repairs, ongoing maintenance, as Ernesto mentioned about the landscaping. If there are street repairs, those are allocated there. So they are dedicated into that area. You cannot take them out. The only minor exception is that there is an administrative cost typically worked into those CFDs that helps to pay for the finance department, their administration, things like that. But the majority of those funding is in that district and cannot be transferred to any place else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other, Councilmember?
If Councilmember Canas wanted to know the amount of CFD revenues that we collect, it's on page 34 for top line. So if you see the line that says property tax CFDs at the top.
Perfect.
23,
Thank you.
24, we actually collected 1.5 million. 24, 25. To date, we already have $1 million, so we probably also get to 1.5.
So why is the proposed item, why do we have anything there?
No, we don't put a budget. Do you want to, go ahead.
Sorry, Councilwoman Canas. So these are actually, I believe just last night, there was an item before the council to set a public hearing for the assessment levies, and we have our consultant help put those levies on the tax roll. But those are actually not recognized in the budget until they actually go to the county and get
Fully assessed, got it.
recorded, yes.
Where do the developer impact fees show?
So the developer impact fees will be all throughout, so the revenues will begin in the budget book at approximately page 25, and it'll continue, but I'm sorry, when we say different pots, it just means different funds. And so the development impact fees will lay in those different funds. And so when you see like public improvement fund, that would be a development impact fee. When you see the storm drain fund, that would be another development impact fee. And so the city has to keep those in separate funds, because anytime that a CIP project is brought forward and is using those funds out of the fund balance, it will go specifically out of that fund.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Lynn, you wanted to add?
Yes, the development impact fees are actually, they are designed to fund the incremental cost increase of development. And so I want to put that on the table for the community. So when we're doing a development impact fee, part of what we have to have is we have to have, for example, storm drains. We have to have a storm drain master plan that identifies that which is the incremental amount of increase from new developments, such as up in the Vermont area. So for example, for the police department, we can include future costs such as the addition of police units, radios and things like that in development impact fees. That is one area, that and user fees are two areas that the city really needs to focus on and will probably focus on in the next year, because those have not been updated significantly to look at what the actual costs are, nor do we really have the master plans in place to help fund those things. And so that's another area that we really ought to be thinking about as we move forward.
No, and I appreciate that. That's exactly where my mind is going, because CFDs, their intended purpose is to offset the cost of that new development. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Barr? Councilmember Barr, did you have a question?
Chief Goodman, I know earlier my colleague Kim had asked about the services that you were cutting, and my question is, I know right now the headquarters is closed on Fridays. do the services that you're cutting for police department as just the vacant spots, or is it also the window times for the public to go to the headquarters?
Well, we've been closed on Fridays. I think the entire city has been off on Fridays since the bankruptcy. And while we all struggle to get back to full staffing, I think that that will probably remain the case for us right now. But to your question about, whether or not we'll be impacted, like I said earlier, that remains to be seen. I don't expect to have to cut any filled positions, but we've already established that, some of the vacant positions might be affected, and they won't be filled
That was my
immediately.
only question, because I know there's public that has asked me before, why are they closed on Fridays? Like, well, it's been like that for a while. And so I want to make sure that there's no other hours that are being omitted for the
No,
budget
not
cuts.
at
Okay,
this time.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Ortiz, followed by Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, man. Shoot. Oh, Councilwoman Canas had asked about the breakdown from HDL. And so I was wondering if there is something that would be substantial that we would need to see that would need to be kept confidential. Is it possible for it to be a closed session thing for you to bring to us and then still make something publicly available, but give us a more comprehensive if you guys feel it's necessary?
We'd have to check with legal on that.
Okay.
In my experience, we have not shared detailed information about specific businesses and their revenue generation with our legislative body. It's always just generic, like we'll show you the top 10, we'll show you the top 20, but no numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think did you have okay, to what, and I'm kind of pulling all in, first of all, because this is probably one of the best budget workshops I've ever seen in my years at the city, and just so comprehensive and answering questions. When we do look at the future of economic development, when we look at what businesses are doing well here, I think that comprehensive understanding of the type helps us better plan with the general plan, with the specific plan, and saying, this is what's bringing us money. And so I don't know if the council's ever seen it in Fred's time or our time, but I really, as much as we can see, I would like to see to help us with future developments. And then I had another question on the 1.2 million. So for integrated waste. So is that what we're receiving from the Burtec contract, 1.2? Or am I reading that incorrect? Page
What page? What page are you
35?
on?
Integrated waste management, is that revenue received?
Environmental recycling.
I do know that we have some sub-elements in the Burtec franchise agreement. I believe one of them is a revenue sharing with the sale of recyclable materials. So that may be part of where that funding is coming from. And I'm getting a yes from the finance director.
So we are getting 1.2 million from the fund sharing with Burtec. Is that what that's reflecting?
As you can see on page 35, the recycling revenues are about 750,000. It's right in the middle of the page. And the environmental fee that also goes is the 500. So that totals the 1.2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilmember Ortiz, you mentioned Fred here, and I say this just out of friendship, that Fred, probably his first budget, was they were still using an abacus and chiseled in stone. So, and I say that because with the budget chiseled in stone, but I say that with his, I asked him first if I could make fun of him just briefly, but no, we appreciate you, Fred. Thank you for allowing me to to get a little chuckle at your expense. My question, and I'm afraid. My question will be for HR, and I'll direct you to page 155 regarding liability and risk management. But before we get to that, it's a couple of comments have been made about where the revenue is coming in from, and I've made that inquiry many times in the past. The best that I was able to get as far as where revenue is coming from is kind of like a group. I asked about the Auto Plaza, the revenue that's coming out of there, and the best that I was able to be provided was, as a group, what amount comes from the Auto Plaza. I wasn't able to be provided specific dealerships or anything like that. But I'm certainly confident, and if I may brag a little bit about the Third Ward, between Costco, Sam's Club, Best Buy, Home Depot, all the hotel, I mean, the TOT alone is about $4 million that comes in, and all the other little businesses and shops that are down in the Third Ward. I'm fairly confident that the majority of sales tax probably does come in from the Third Ward. So I do appreciate a lot of those businesses down there, and our neighboring cities too that come in and shop in our city and down on Hospitality Lane as well. So, and yeah, and the Auto Plaza as well. I mean, that probably brings in all kinds of money for us as well. But so thank you to them as well. So page 155 for our HR. For liability and risk management, I see here a couple of times that the actuals that come in are somewhere in the ballpark of 8.7, 9.8, but we keep continuing to budget that for more than twice the amount at 20 million, 20 million, and again 20 million here. Is there an explanation for the double amount in the budget compared to the actuals that come in? And again, I'm sorry, I know that the longer we sit here, we continue to dissect this, so this will be my last dissection.
Risk management. I think that's to account for the, you got it? Okay.
Okay, so our liability and risk, we actually have a consultant that HR hires, and they look at our past cases, current, and future. It is our job to make sure that we have that amount ready in the event that we have to settle legal claims. So the budget is a potential. It's not what the actual is going to be, but they are basing it on our current claims, our claims that are still open, and what we think might be future claims that will have to be settled.
Is that based on the loss run?
Yes.
Okay. And if, for those who don't know, the loss run is the life of all of the claim the city has acquired, whether they're open, closed, everything. And I'm assuming is that the case, what they're looking at based off of how they projected to 20 million? Because it's very astronomical. I've never seen this number.
Well, that is what their average is. That's what they think it's going to be based on, again, our past history, our current, it's based on our open claims.
And their analysis always is worst-case scenario. They look at claims and they expect, if this goes bad, this is how much money you need. And you'll see we budget a substantial amount, but we don't spend that much. So that's good.
And I think it's good for the public to understand that our self-insured retention is 5 million, whereas in the past it used to be 1 million. So I think that's probably a huge factor into, we are on the hook, the city is on the hook for up to 5 million, and then the excess insurer comes in, whereas back in the past it was 1 million.
So to the mayor's question, may I? Sorry. Then is it kind of like, then those roll over? Like if it's not used, it's rolled over to the next year. It's absorbed. Like how is that being? Yeah, it just kind of sits in a fund. Yeah,
that's correct.
Right. Is it like PD? Are we cutting?
Yes, it's a liability, and we try to be conservative. That's what we want to be. If it is needed to be used, great. If it's not, then as you said, we just rolled it over. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Ortiz?
Yes, so I have a question, and I know water's not here, so I wanted to know, are legal fees for the water department included in your budget?
No, the water department actually has their own budget, and they actually do their own financials.
Okay.
Yeah, again, this is, since I have been there, they are a separate entity, and they hold their own financials.
They're a quasi-separate entity. They are ours.
That is correct.
For intensive
You are
purposes. So,
correct.
but they contract with BB&K for legal, or do they have their own separate legal?
That I do not know.
I don't know the answer to that.
So I believe when we transitioned to BBK, that the water did pay back on the city's services with BBK. So that's just something if we could look into and find out that's the case.
The water department pays for it.
Yes, they have a separate finance.
Yeah, water
Right.
department pays for their own legal, but they use our contract.
Okay, but it's all still the city of San Bernardino. So I guess that's kind of, I don't want anybody to think that the water department is its own separate entity, because it's really not, and I know it gets treated like that, but we fought so hard to maintain the water department during the bankruptcy years.
And
So-
the water board, the mayor and city councilors
right.
do have oversight on the water board.
Right. So and that's a big thing, I think, for the residents, is I don't want us to, it feels, and now they're doing a great job and they're managing very well, but it is a part of the city of San Bernardino. And so I know they do their own thing, but I would like to see in the future, possibly them be available or be able to answer questions during, just on the general for us, because that is a city entity. But with that,
And just so, we've had that before where water, our general manager would actually present during the budget too, in the past.
Because I had people calling about their financials today, and so I went through over their stuff, but I just think it's good for us to be represented as a whole. So for legal though, and so they have their contract, they're paying for that. We have our contract. What does we have roughly $4 million being farmed out to other entities. What is that? Because I know Councilwoman Canas had asked for a breakdown we didn't get yet, but what does that all entail for us with the different?
I'm not sure I understand your question. You said there's money farmed out to
So
other.
we have $4 million in outside counsel, in our legal services in our budget.
BBK is part of that 4 million.
Well, right. So
we,
well, the
so
total
you have a
budget's-
contract with BBK for
Right.
certain services, and there's certain services that we, let's say, are conflicted out, so you have to hire outside counsel to handle that. That's something separate, so that's another outlay of money to another entity that's providing, outside counsel services.
So what all, and I know we have your contract, but what all litigation, like what do you say? I know you come to meetings, I know you guys sit with our planning advisories, but what cases do you kind of handle for us?
Well, we serve as the counsel, the city attorney for the council, city council. For litigation, that has to be handled by someone else because we provide guidance to you as the city council. Litigation, you have various law firms that handle different litigation that's going on in the city. That's something outside of BBK because for one reason it'd be a conflict of interest. We serve you, the city, and so you have to have an independent person conduct the investigation that doesn't provide city attorney services to the council. Does that make sense?
Okay. No, it does. So we're paying roughly $2 million. How much is BB&K just to be the city attorney in this breakdown then? Because we're paying almost 5.2 million for legal services in total.
Yeah, BBK is roughly between 2.5 and 3, I believe.
So $2.5 and $3 million, but you don't litigate cases, and
We can't litigate
right. You do, so
cases
so
when we're
that, I guess
providing
that's my thing
services
is
to you in the city attorney
Right.
capacity.
so then what it entails is coming to the meetings, advising the departments.
Well, no, there's a lot more that goes on in that. For example, you have various contracts out there.
Right.
You need legal review for the contracts. We do that. You have agreements, bond counsel. BBK serves as your bond counsel. Enforcement actions. We have an enforcement division. So there's a whole host of things that BBK does for you in a city attorney capacity. It's not just coming to a meeting and advising. That's just
So I know, Councilwoman Canas, that you had asked for a breakdown for the individual. Is that the same type of breakdown you've requested for BB&K? Is like their individual invoices, or?
No, what I
don't remember
requested
your-
specifically, being that it was questioned as far as the amount that was being charged by the law firm, because we, like the attorney said, we contract with multiple, I think it's about 14 or 15 different law firms that we do contract with. So someone had asked the question of asking for total amounts. Receiving the total amounts without having the full context doesn't really paint an accurate picture.
Right.
So what I have requested to coincide with those amounts is actually the actual case hours per legal firm, because I'm sure they bill hourly. In addition, the law firm's specialty, because obviously you bill by the specialty, different experience levels and expertise demand a different level of service, demand a different level of pay. So again, I asked for the additional context so that we can truly be able to break down and comprehensively what the amount of legal services are, not just with BB&K, but again with the other, I think it's about 14 law firms that we do contract with.
So that's my question. So your request did include a breakdown from BB&K as equal to the other firms?
Well, absolutely, because the
Okay.
request included their contract. So within their contract, it should list, I would assume, it would tell their scope of services that they offer for the city.
Right, because I know that right now, we're not even to the end of the fiscal year, and so the costs are going up. And so, City Manager Gallardo, when do you believe that we'll have that type of breakdown?
I don't know. We have to go back and pull each and every contract, because I think the question was how much was the hourly? So we'll have to go back to all 14 of those contracts, pull the hourly, and then the request was also what cases they're working on. It's going to take a little bit of time. I think we have a staff member we've identified that's going to start pulling that data for us. So as soon as we can, absolutely.
I have a question. Talking about litigated case, I think it would be helpful for us as the body to know what are all the litigated cases, and it may not be an open session item, but as part of the closed session, to talk about what are the lists of all litigated cases that we have open right now. Because I think it's helpful for us to understand the liability of our city as an elected body and how we manage our risks in this city. And just seeing that $20 million budgeted for the liability line alone, that's not including workers' comp. Workers' comp is about, I believe, 6-7 million on top of that. Again, that's huge numbers. And so as a former HR risk management director, I've never seen that number. And I understand that having a professional come in to say, hey, this based on your current liability of past and present claims, this is what you should forecast. But I also want us to be able to go into the future. How do we manage our risk? How do we, what is it that lessons learned, and we need to make sure that we don't continue down this path of this high astronomical numbers, so that we could spend those dollars towards more for police department, for parks, for our streets. I mean, things that, again, Councilmember Canas has said, if the residents don't see, feel, and touch it, then that's a problem, right? So those are things that we just need to, again, it helps us as an elected body, how we move our city forward effectively. Thank you.
And Mayor?
Councilmember Ibarra.
And as part of the litigation, I think the main concern the public here has is how much we're paying out in settlements, and why are we paying them out? What departments are being held liable or not? Is it because of our attorneys, city attorney, or is it because of the workers' comp claims against the city, the officer-involved shootings, et cetera? I think that's what's going on in the community. There's a misconception of who is costing the city a lot of settlement or litigation fees to be charged to us. And I think the public should know exactly what departments are settling this, or we as a body, we are the ones making the settlements. We have the attorneys come to us and they present their cases to us. We are the ones who decide whether or not to pay out a certain case that's out there, for example. I think it's good for the community to know. Is it personnel? Is it staff? Is it our own city attorneys, et cetera? I think that's what the community wants to know. Because right now, there's a huge misconception that a lot of the settlements is because of BB&K. Because of BB&K. BB&K is costing the city, and it's not them. And it's something the community should be fully aware of what's going on.
Thank you. Councilmember Ortiz?
So, I don't want to jump, just in case there are any more questions, then are we asking? Okay, I was just going to make a motion then to approve, but I will wait.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll allow you to make the motion.
Okay, I just
a
wanted to
quick
make
question.
the motion, if everybody's good, to make the motion to approve the recommendations as well as the addition to bringing back the subdivision between Public Works and looking into the consolidation of economic development and housing again, and the Love Your Block grant. So for you to bring that back all together at the next meeting. I thought we needed to send the recommendation for you guys to bring that back. I don't? To make the changes that you guys needed?
What do you
I
want?
guess staff, can you jump in and advise?
Go ahead. Yeah. So staff has noted all the changes you've identified. We're going to come back with the formal budget public hearing that was identified tonight.
And you outline all of those changes, and just so that way it's
I think we
clear.
can.
Thank you. Okay. So,
And so my
yes, Mayor Pro
final-
Tem?
So my final comment will be included in that. What I would like to also see is what amount of departments, or any, if any, were balanced their budget by transferring certain costs to other departments, because it doesn't sit well with me that another department would have to absorb those costs and then make cuts in other areas that they would not have had to make cuts in. And so I would like to know if there were any departments that balanced their budgets by transferring certain costs to another department as well, because again, that wouldn't sit well with me either, because now we're having to make, one department might have to make cuts that they probably wouldn't have had to make cuts in. Thank you. That is all.
Good comment. Okay, I don't see any further comments. Thank you, staff. I think you guys have all the feedback, and excellent comments and statements by council. This was very, very fruitful and very productive. Again, shout out to all the staff, all of your hard work. I know this was a lot to put together, and really it's very reflective of what we should be doing to serve this community. So thank you so much. I think that's pretty much it, right? We will now adjourn the meeting at 7:59 p.m. The next joint regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council, and the Mayor and City Council acting as the successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, and the Mayor and City Council acting as the San Bernardino City Housing Authority, and the Mayor and City Council of the City of San Bernardino acting as the San Bernardino Joint Powers Finance Authority will adjourn to the regular meeting to be held on June 4th, 2025 at the Feltime Central Library located at 555 West 6th Street, San Bernardino, California, 92410. Closed session will begin at 4 p.m. Open session will